Hi, everybody. This is Joe Osmick in McWane, Ductile, Utah's Environmental Department. And we're going to spend a couple of minutes going through waste handling orientation in the pole department. So I'm going to talk to you about all our waste that we have back there in poles and how to manage it properly so we can comply with the regulations. So what waste do you have in the pole department? You have these basic ones I've got listed here. I've got used batteries, used lamps, either complex fluorescents, HIDs, or tubes, spent aerosol cans, dry ceramic epoxy waste from your coating operations, oily debris if you have a spill, and empty scrap drums and pails. So what we're going to do is go through these and tell you how to label, how to manage, and what to do with them, okay? So let's start with universal waste. Universal waste is a term that's referenced in the regulations. I didn't come up with it. It's in the regulations. It's universal to all businesses. Okay, so it doesn't matter. It's a Maverick station, Nestle's or us, industry as a whole, manage these waste as a universal waste. Okay, the goals of this program are to encourage and make it easier for us to manage. So what are the types of universal waste? Well, when we're talking about batteries, okay, it could be nickel cadmium, alkaline, or other types of batteries, dry cell batteries. We also have mercury containing equipment. You guys probably aren't going to generate much of this in the poles department. What we're talking about there are the small mercury switches that have in older homes, older businesses and factories. Lamps, we refer to them as lamps, not bulbs. The regulations reference them that way. So we're looking at fluorescent tubes, high intensity discharge lamps, or incandescent lamps. We collect those because we're required to. And also aerosol cans. All right. So none of these waste should be finding their way into trash only containers. We should be putting them in specific containers that are labeled this way. And that's what we're going to go through. So we look at used batteries. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's alkaline, NiCad, lithium ion. We've got a 5-gallon pail located there in the poles building. If you don't know where it is, talk to your supervisor. They'll direct you to where it's at. And they're labeled like this. They've got used battery container labeling on the lid and on the side of the pail. Okay, they're 5-gallon pails. And you don't have to segregate batteries. Put all your batteries into this container. We will monitor them weekly, monthly, and collect them on an annual basis. That's why they're labeled with the date on them. Okay. Then we have lamps or light bulbs. We call them lamps, like I said. We've got two types of containers for these. So the long fluorescent lamps go into these white coffin type boxes that you see in the photograph to the right. And then for the incandescent or the compact fluorescents, they'll go in the bucket that's located right next to the container. If you don't know where these containers are, talk to your supervisor. If you generate the waste, this is where it goes. Lastly, aerosol cans, all right? If you have an aerosol can that is completely empty, nothing left in it, please don't throw it in the trash, okay? We go around and we do audits and inspections, and if we see this finding its way into the trash, an inspector from the state or an auditor can write us up and issue a violation for that. So we have to collect these. If you have a full aerosol can, doesn't work no matter what you do. It's 3/4 or completely full. You've worked with it, try to clean it up, get the nozzle to spray. It doesn't work no matter what you do. Go to one of these yellow drums, and they're located there on the shop floor, listed as universal waste aerosol can. Put the waste in this container and then lid it. All these wastes that we're talking about, the only time the lid should be open, okay, is when you're filling it. Otherwise, the lid stays closed. It's a regulatory requirement, okay? Make sure that all the containers that we talked about have labels on them. If they don't have labels, talk with your supervisor. Environmental, make sure that your supervisor has those labels. No waste container on the shop floor should be filled without a label on it. Any waste container that's not being used should have a lid on it. A non-hazardous waste is a waste that doesn't meet the regulatory requirements for a hazardous waste, as being flammable or having metals in it or being corrosive. So the one waste that you have on your shop floor that is non-hazardous, okay, is the dry ceramic epoxy. So when you're coating the poles and you have residual epoxy that you can no longer use, it's in the bottom of the drum, okay, we're consolidating that material into one drum and labeling it as a non-hazardous waste dry ceramic epoxy. That drum also should be lidded, okay, when it's full and when it's not in use. What do you do when you have a full dry ceramic epoxy waste drum? You take it to the Butler building, you put it inside the west side of the Butler building, and I will basically coordinate shipment and disposal of that material. Have any questions? Talk to your supervisor. Other types of non-hazardous waste, oily water. And I realize you may not generate a lot of this. It could be either residual oil, synthetic, or conventional, or it could be water-soluble oil. Any oily water must be containerized, okay? We have a 275-gallon plastic poly tote that's located on the shop floor. You need to make sure it has a green and white non-hazardous label on it. It's labeled oily water. When that tote is full, take it back to the west side of the Butler building and I'll coordinate disposal of that. That container also should be lidded when not in use. When you're filling it, obviously you have to open it. When it's not in use, again, please lid it. Oily debris. When you do spill cleanup, you're going to have pads, booms, floor dry of debris material. Where do you take that? Well, once you go to one of these spill kits and you do your spill cleanup, okay, you're going to transfer that debris into the silver drum that's sitting right next to that spill kit. It's already pre-labeled, has a lid on it. Just make sure it gets into the oily debris drum. When you have a full oily debris drum, don't let it sit on the floor. You need to take it over to the oily debris roll-off that's located on the north side of the lure bag house. You'll empty the contents of the oily debris into that box and then return the oily debris drum to its original location. And don't forget, you're going to need to restock the spill kit. Restock items for your spill kits, okay, are located in the storeroom. If you forget what goes into the spill kit, I put a label on the side of that kit that tells you what goes in there. Take a photograph, take notes, go over to the storeroom and restock the kit. If there's a spill next day, a week from now, a year from now, you want to make sure that that spill kit is pre-positioned, stocked, and ready to go for the next person that might need it. Question always comes up, empty metal drums. What's an empty drum? Well, the regulations say, this is per EPA, like I have listed in the slide here, all material has been removed that can be. You've done all you can to get the material out of that container, right? No more than an inch of material remains in the original container, whether it's a 5-gallon pail, like I've shown in this photograph, or a 55-gallon drum. You don't have any more than an inch. Now, I'm not expecting you to measure it with the ruler. Look at it, you can tell what an inch is, okay? All labeling has been removed or blacked out. What you need to do is make sure that the labeling has either been sprayed out, so you can't read it, or it's been peeled off. With that said, everyone knows it'll be an empty container. What do you do with that container then? You take it over to the breaking pit because it's metal, assuming that it's a metal container. You'll put that, we can use that as scrap metal. If it's a poly container and it meets these 3 bullet items, everything has been removed, no more than an inch, you remove the labeling on it and it's completely empty, you can put it in the trash. There's no issue with that, but it has to be empty. Any questions? Again, talk to your supervisor. Handling cutoff pipe sections. We have 2 boxes staged outside for your sections that you cut off the poles as you're putting them together. Okay, what we want to make sure is that we don't create an unsafe condition for our 2 environmental techs who will empty these for you. So when you fill these, please don't overfill them past the red line. It creates an unsafe and unstable box to manage, and that box can slide off our roll-off truck. And it puts the truck driver at risk and could cause injury to him and those in the area around it. So please don't overfill those boxes. We have 2 there. If you need them to be emptied, call the environmental techs, Taylor on your radio, he'll come over and empty them. They're looking at this daily, so hopefully we won't run into a situation where you lose capacity on these. But please don't overfill the boxes. Lastly, this is what we don't want to see. We don't want to see pails of of material that are open, sitting on the floor. We want to make sure that all the residual is scraped off and put into the non-hazardous 55-gallon drum of dry epoxy. We don't want to see aerosol cans laying around like this. They either go in the flammable storage cabinet or they go in the waste container when you're not using them. Lamps of all sorts, fluorescent, HID, sitting on desk, they have appropriate location for them in the containers that we talked about. If you have any questions, again, either talk to me in the environmental department or talk to your supervisor. Thank you.